All right, welcome back to WMMA now with your host Chuck Stevenson. So, if you're like a lot of other people and don't have anything else to do during these quarantine times, personally, I'm an essential worker as it is, but nowhere else to go after work. So, watching a lot of fights, and you're probably wondering yourself, what are some good fights I should watch? So, I decided to put together some lists of good fights to watch, and I figured I'd break them down by promotion. And one thing I've tried to do with this channel is to cover as diverse an array of fight promotions and everything as possible. Try to get be the most informative channel on all the women's mixed martial arts fights that are going on out there. So this first list of fights to watch is dedicated to Korean promotion Road Fighting Championship. So Road FC has been promoting women's fights since their very first fight at Road FC 12 in June 2013. Women's fight they promoted was Celine Haga versus Masako Yoshida. Since then, they have had 6 fights headlined by female fights, with 4 of those being all-female main cards with their Double X promotion. They've crowned 1 woman champion to date, Sahi Ham, in the atomweight division. Now, this list is going to be, you're going to see a lot of repeats of the same names, because while they do promote the women fairly heavily, it's mostly within the atomweight and strawweight divisions. They haven't gone too far past that yet, and a lot of the heavier weight fights just aren't worth watching for the most part. So, anyway, this list is not in any specific order. There's 2 fights I'd want you to watch back to back, and I'll get to the why in a moment, but you can watch this in any order you want to. So anyway, number 1, Kim Hae-in versus Lin Hae-jin at Road FC number 33 in September of 2016. Kim was making her debut. Lin was 3-1 at the time. And what makes this fight interesting is, even though they're 2 relatively inexperienced fighters, it's a bit of a Taekwondo versus Sanda. So you had the Korean Taekwondo fighter versus the Chinese Sanda fighter, and this fight ended in a majority draw. Not to spoil it for you, but it was fairly close matchmaking. Next fight is going to be Park Jong-un making her debut versus Emi Fujino, who was 15-8 at the time. This was at Road FC number 23 in May of 2015, and I put this fight down because it's an example of, sometimes the matchmaking in Asia can be pretty bad. You have a fighter making their debut versus someone who had over 20 fights at the time. But it's also a good example that sometimes the less experienced fighter, as it were, can actually put on a pretty good fight. Next up is the first of 2 fights I want you to watch back to back. Hong Yoon-ha, 0-2 versus Wan Shanji, making her debut at Road FC 37 Double X in March of 2017. This fight was a good example of Hong, who was a grappling specialist wanting to stand with someone who was more of a striker in Wan, much to her detriment. And then the next fight, number 4, is Hong Yoon-ha, who by then was 3-5, taking on Emi Tomomatsu, 15-15, at Road 57 Double X in December of 2019. And I want you to watch this one right after the first one, just to see how much 2 years can change a fighter's skills. And you look at the striking of Hong when she took on Wan versus when she took on Tomomatsu. Huge difference, like night and day, 2.5 years can make in her striking. Next up, number 5, Shim Yu-ri, who was 3-2, versus Lim So-hee, who was 2-1 at Road FC number 50. in November of 2018. I chose this fight because it went kind of the opposite of everyone's expectations. A lot of people thought that, Shim would be the better fighter standing, but Lim would be the better fighter on the ground, and it turned out that Shim just threw that all out of whack by being the first to take down Lim. So it made for a surprising expectation there. Next up, Hamsahi, 17-8, taking on Kurobi Mina, 10-2 at Road FC 39 in June of 2017. This was the return of Hamsahi to Korea after several years in the UFC. And it was also the first women's championship of Road Fighting Championship. And it was, at the time, Mina Kurobi was the Deep Jewels champion as well. So good fight to watch there. Good high-level fight. Next up, Lim So-hee, 0-1, taking on Hannah Date, who was 2-3 at the time, at Road 37 XX in March 2017. I chose this fight because not only was it fun to watch, it's really, I don't know what it is about the Team Date fighters. I just like watching them fight. Mostly because they get their asses beat, but it's fun to watch them get their asses beat. I don't know why. I guess it's because their whole concept is kind of goofy, and the way they fight is kind of goofy, and it's fun to just watch them get beat. And Lim So-hee beat her up pretty good. At number 8, Shim Yu-ri versus coming in 4-2 versus Shiming, who was 6-2 at Road 51 XX in December of 2018. This is a good fight. I liked it because it was Muay Thai versus Taekwondo. Shim being the Muay Thai stylist and Shiming being a Taekwondo specialist from China. And also, you got to watch this for Shim Yu-ri's clinch work, particularly the knees. She just kneed the hell out of Shiming in this fight. Number 9, Lee Ye-ji, 2-2 versus Shinashi Satoko, 35-2 at Road 37 XX in March 2017. This was really good to watch because it was a rematch from Lee's debut a couple years earlier in 2015. It was a nice little revenge match for Ye-ji Lee, taking on the way more experienced Satoko Shinashi. Nice little fight there. Lee did get a revenge, spoiler alert, but definitely one to watch. And Satoko Shinashi is always fun to watch. So, number 10, Hamsahi, 18-8, taking on Jin Yu Fry, 6-2 at Road 45 XX, December of 2017. And you want to watch this one. This was Ham's first defense of her title. She won it back in June of that year against Mina Kurobi. This is her first defense against Jin Yu Fry, coming over from Invicta FC. Definitely want to watch this because at the time, Ham was number 1 in the atomweight division, and Jin Yu Fry was number 2. Hamasaki hadn't fought in well over a year at that point, and it had been like a year and a half since she had fought at atomweight by then. So these were the number 1 and number 2 in the division in the world fighting each other. And this fight, it didn't make it out of the first round, but that round was just a heck of a fight. Very exciting. Every time I watch that fight, I get excited and I get nervous watching it. It's been, 2 years now, and it's still an exciting fight to watch. So definitely check this one out. Next up, number 11, Park Jong-eun, 2-1 versus Park Shi-yu, making her debut at Road FC 42, September of 2017. This is a nice little battle of kickboxing stylists. Also, it set up a future fight between Park Jong-eun and Hamsahi because Park Shi-yu had become, by this point, had become the main training and sparring partner of Seo Hee-ham. So that set up that little bit of storyline right there. Number 12, Hong Yoon-ha, who was 0-4 at the time, took on Shim Yu-ri, 2-0 at Road 43 in October of 2017. This was a rematch from when they were amateurs. Shim came in kind of late notice. I believe Hong was supposed to take on, I want to say, Kim Hae-in. Memory fails me at the point. This is a good example that don't judge a fighter by their record, because without spoiling it, just don't judge a fighter by their record. I made that mistake and ended up getting my pick for this fight wrong. So definitely don't judge a fighter by their record. It was a good fight while it lasted. Number 13, Shiming, 6-3, taking on Lee Soo-young, who was 1-0 at the time at Road 57 XX, just this last December of 2019. This was just an all-around fun fight. It was only 2 rounds. All but the championship fights over in Road are usually only 2 rounds for whatever reason. So it was only a 2-round fight, but it was a darn good, fun 2 rounds. Just all-around fun fight, like I said. Definitely one to check out. Number 14, Park Jong-un, 6-1 versus Shim Yu-ri, 5-2 from Road 57 XX again, just this last December. You want to watch this fight because these two had somehow avoided fighting each other over their careers up to this point. I mean, they had both made their pro debuts in Road. Both had fought in Road since then and outside of Road, but had managed to avoid fighting each other. So when they finally met, it was pretty much, out of the current newer generation of Korean fighters, it was the 2 best, really. Up to that point, John Park and Shim were pretty much neck and neck competing with each other. Not necessarily in the records department. Park had been fighting like a year or 2 longer than Shim, but they're both considered, the same generation of Korean fighters at this point. Seo Hee-ham is the first generation of female fighters, and everyone else since then is pretty much the second. And these two are pretty much neck and neck for who is the best of the second and who would possibly set themselves up for a shot at Ham's belt. So you definitely want to watch this one. It was pretty darn good too. And finally, last but certainly not least, Ham Seo-hee, 19-8, taking on Park Jong-un, 4-1 at Road 51 XX at December of 2018. This one was a fight where going in, not too many people gave Park a ghost of a chance. Personally, I did. I thought it would be close. I thought it would be a good fight. And honestly, it actually was a pretty good fight. Ham had finished her previous 2 opponents since coming into Road at atomweight. And this one actually was the first fight that went to decision. I thought Park gave a good account of herself. I thought she was ahead after the first round. But then Ham, got her timing and everything down. So it was, basically it was Ham Seo-hee, the champ, versus the top local prospect out of Korea, was why they set up this fight. Even though Park had a 500 record at the point, it was Road basically deciding, well, we want to give a local fighter a chance to fight for the belt after 2 foreigners versus Ham. And so they picked out the best one at the time. And it ended up being a darn good fight. Again, good fight. So, that's my list of 15 fights to watch from Road FC. The majority I think the vast majority of these are on YouTube. There might be 1 or 2 you have to work a little bit of Google foo to watch. I'll try to put all the links together to watch them, either if not in the description, then in a pinned comment later on. Anyway, if you've already seen some of these fights, let me know your thoughts on them in the comments down below. If not, go watch some of the fights and then come back and let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Of course, likes are always appreciated. And hey, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to WMMA Scene Now, the best, fastest growing women's mixed martial arts dedicated platform on YouTube. Don't forget to hit that bell for notifications. It'd be a lot cooler if you did. And we'll see you next time.